Vice Chair and Commissioners, meeting is being live streamed.
Thank you, Secretary. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday, April 15th, 2026, 5:15 p.m. regular Planning Commission meeting. This meeting will now come to order. Tonight's invocation will be given by Mr. Hernandez, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Gomez.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Lord, please grant the Planning Commission guidance and wisdom with the items presented to them before them today. Thank you.
Commissioner Gomez, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, Commissioner. At this time, Commissioners, please announce any item you are recusing from due to a conflict of interest prior to the item being heard. Seeing none, Secretary, will you please call the roll of the Planning Commission?
Commissioner Boado,
Present.
Commissioner Gomez,
Present.
Commissioner Monroy,
Present.
Commissioner Preciado,
Present.
Vice Chairperson Barrera.
Present. We will now begin with item number 5.1 on the agenda. At this time, I will open the public hearing at 5:25 p.m. May we have the staff report, please, Mr. Hernandez?
Yes, Vice Chair. Today's staff report will be delivered by Adrian Andujo, our Associate Planner.
Good evening, commissioners, staff, and members of the public. Again, my name is Adrian Andujo, Associate Planner with the Bell Gardens Planning Division. The item brought forth today is to introduce tentative parcel map number 85047. It is staff's recommendation that the Planning Commission find that the tentative parcel map number 85047 is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines pursuant to section 15315, class 15. And 2, adopt resolution number PC 2026, recommending approval of tentative parcel map number 85047 to allow the subdivision of the property located at 5629 Fosteria Street from one existing parcel to 2 separate parcels. I would like to mention for the record that the aerial image does not accurately represent the true development on the site, given that there was a recent development completed. Thank you. The property is located at 5629 Fosteria Street and currently zoned R3, high-density residential with the general plan designation of high-density residential. The site is approximately 18,226 square feet, surrounded primarily by residential uses to the north, south, and east, and open space to the west. The site is also developed with a duplex residence, 2 accessory dwelling units, a carport, a porch, and a 1-car garage. In addition, the current lot is comprised of 3 lots that are tied together to essentially make 1 parcel. The lot is part of a single existing parcel that contains the developed portion to the left of the lot if you are facing Fosteria Street, while the other portion remains vacant. A block wall separates the development area from the vacant portion. The photo shows the vacant portion of the lot if you are facing the parcel from Fosteria Street, which is to the right. The proposed subdivision would divide the existing 18,226 square foot parcel into two separate parcels. Parcel 1 would measure approximately 74 feet, 0.7 feet in width by 135 feet in depth, totaling 10,084.5 square feet. And parcel 2 would measure approximately 60 feet in width by 135 feet in depth, totaling 8,140.5 square feet. Both parcels comply with the underlying zoning standards and are consistent with the development patterns of surrounding neighborhoods. No new construction or development is being proposed as part of this entitlement. Additionally, the final map would remove all existing lot ties and clean up the parcel configuration. Tentative parcel map number 85047 has been reviewed and is found to be consistent with chapter 9.10 and 9.78 of the Bell Gardens Municipal Code, which establishes the city's subdivision regulations designed to promote public health, safety, and general welfare, as well as the city's general plan. The proposed map also meets all applicable requirements of the Subdivision Map Act. Additionally, the project has been reviewed by the city's engineer to ensure compliance with all applicable standards. Utility providers have also reviewed the proposal and issued will serve letters confirming the adequate services are available. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission, 1, find the tentative parcel map number 85047 is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to section 15315, and 2, adopt resolution number PC 2026-3 approving tentative parcel map number 85047 to allow the subdivision of the property located at 5629 Fosteria Street from one parcel into two. Thank you. This concludes staff's presentation. We are available for any questions.
Thank you. At this time, if the applicant would like to come to the podium to address the planning commission, they may do so. Do we know if the applicant is here today? I don't believe they are.
Vice Chair, we don't see the applicant in the room.
All right, thank you. We will now move to commissioner questions or comments. Does any commissioner have any questions?
Not a question, but just to reframe. So it's one parcel, we're splitting it into subdivisions, two parcels. Nothing's getting, no construction's being done at the time, correct? But it could be a 3-bedroom home, 2-bedroom, we don't know, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, at the subdivided portion, there's not currently any proposals for development. After speaking with the applicant, they do plan on submitting once the decision is made from Planning Commission. However, yeah, no development.
Got it. And it all depends too, as far as, let's say that parcel 2, they decide to do construction or build something. From there, they would be, as far as I'm thinking about parking, right? Is it 2 parking spots or 1 that they have to do or something like that? It all depends.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, for R3, it does require 2 parking spaces,
Okay,
and that can be in garage or open space.
got it. Thank you.
So, so this lot is currently owned by one entity and they're splitting it up. I'm assuming they're either going to develop it or sell it, right? Now you said that that originally it was a 3-lot unit? Like there were 3 lots on there?
Yeah, I can provide that clarification. So currently it's tied. So it's tied. So the lot is tied. So what that means essentially is that if a lot is tied, it's considered one parcel. However, the applicants, they're doing the tentative parcel map essentially to clean it up because there's portions of the lot that are, I guess, irregularly. Yeah, so it's essentially to clean it up and to kind of develop on.
Just to clarify, when I mean tied, it means that they're not in a parcel in one parcel. So they're separate parcels and they're tied with like an agreement. So now by doing the tenant parcel map, it cleans the whole property up and it creates two separate parcels, properties that are more, when you see an assessor's map, you won't see like those squares. It'll be one complete property.
And commissioners, if I could add, if you turn to your exhibit 3 of this item, so item 5.1, exhibit 3. If you look at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a dashed triangle there. So that lot plus parcel 2 make up one lot because there's what we call a tie to that. So really it's developed as one, but legally it's also 2, but that developer can only develop it as one. And then as the director had mentioned, when they do a final map, it eliminates that line. And then also just for added clarity, if you look at parcel 1 on the left-hand side, kind of towards the middle, you'll see a dash line that runs straight down the building. So that's also a line that's tied in. So parcel 1 is actually, again, 2 parcels, but that tie makes it 1 parcel for them to be able to develop. And again, as the director mentioned, the final map will eliminate those lines and you'll just have clean 1 parcel and 2 parcel.
Right now, parcel 2 is basically an empty lot.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I know it was mentioned that there was a recent development on that site. Are we able to know what was the recent development?
Yeah, so on parcel 1, if you look back to the exhibit, so which is the left portion of the lot if you're facing Fosteria, there's currently a duplex on there and 2 ADUs with, as I mentioned in the as well in the speech, the 1-car garage as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Flores. So this is only to divide the parcel up, but any other future improvements will still have to go through the process of going through the planning department.
That's correct. Yeah. So we are the project is also conditioned. If for any future development, they're going to have to go through the community development department with us.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Do we have any other questions from the commissioners? Seeing none, we will now open public participation for this item. Secretary, please announce the instructions for public participation.
The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on public hearing item number 5.1. Please state your name for the record before addressing the members of the Planning Commission. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to speak may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to speak by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or the microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from the members of the public that are physically present in the council chamber. If you haven't done so already, please submit all comment cards now. 1 written comment has been submitted and distributed to the commissioners. We did not receive any public comment cards.
Just for clarity for the commission, the one that was submitted to you is for the next item, not for this item.
That is correct.
Thank you for that clarification. If there are no objections by the Planning Commission, I will close public participation at 5:37 p.m. And if there are no additional questions or comments by the Planning Commission, I will close public hearing at 5:37 p.m. May I have a motion to move forward with staff's recommendation as noted in the staff report?
Yeah, motion to move with staff recommendation to adopt Planning Commission Resolution PC 2026-03.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Planning Secretary, will you please conduct the roll call vote?
Commissioner Boado?
Yes.
Commissioner Gomez?
Yes.
Commissioner Monroy?
Yes.
Commissioner Preciado?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Barrera?
Yes. We will now begin with item number 5.2 on the agenda. At this time, I will open the public hearing at 5:38 p.m. May we have the staff report, please, Mr. Hernandez?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. We'll wait for the slides to come up. Good evening, Vice Chair and Commission. I am Alfonso Hernandez, City Planner. The item before you is a proposal for a new specific plan. The title of that plan is the Bell Gardens Transit Orientated Community Specific Plan. The project also involves a general plan amendment, zone code amendment, zone change, and initial study / mitigated negative declaration. With us today are consultants with Kimley Horn and Associates. They've been with us throughout the length of the project, and they're here again, helping us out again with this presentation. We'll pass it over to them after I go through a few slides. Also, I wanted to share that the presentation is about 41 slides, so please bear with us. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission, one, find that the initial study and mitigated negative declaration was prepared in accordance with and pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, concluding less than significant impacts with mitigations would occur. Two, adopt resolution PC 2026-04, recommending that the City Council adopt an ordinance approving the Bell Gardens Transit Oriented Communities Specific Plan and certify a mitigated negative declaration. Three, adopt resolution PC 2026-0005, recommending the City Council adopt an ordinance approving a general plan amendment, establishing a new land use designation for the Transit Oriented Community Specific Plan and corresponding policies, and that will be incorporated into the general plan. Four, adopt resolution PC 2026-06, recommending the City Council adopt an ordinance approving a zone code amendment, establishing a new zone of transit-oriented community-specific plan. And five, adopt resolution PC 2026-07, recommending the City Council adopt an ordinance approving a zone change for various properties located within the TOC specific plan. Some background. Staff applied and was awarded a grant for this project. Subsequently, on December 11, 2023, the Bell Gardens City Council adopted a resolution authorizing acceptance of that grant. The grant was in a total of $355,450 from the California Department of Transportation, which is also known as Caltrans. That grant is a Sustainable Transportation and Climate Adaptation Planning Grant, awarded to support projects that advance coordination in transportation, housing, and land use planning. On April 25th, 2024, staff released a request for proposals soliciting consultants apply for the completion of that plan. And then on September 23rd, 2024, the City Council adopted resolution number 2024-059, approving a professional services agreement with Kimley Horn and Associates. And before jumping into specifics, I wanted to give a brief overview of the plan and its objectives. The proposed specific plan is focused on increasing housing capacity and connectivity improvements within the project area. The project would introduce 5 development opportunity districts, which would provide new housing of a maximum of 381 units throughout the specific plan area, new commercial uses, various safety and public space improvements, while improving regional connectivity into nearby communities. The project establishes goals, infrastructure improvements, and zoning updates to regulate and facilitate new development in this project area. And with that, to get us into the specifics of the specific plan, I'm going to pass it over to Brian De La Torre to give us this presentation.
Good evening. My name is Brian De La Torre with Kimley Horn and Associates. As Alfonso mentioned, we're here to discuss the transit-oriented community-specific plan. This is a plan that's really almost 2 years in the process. This is a plan that was conducted with the community and city staff. As you'll see on the screen, this is the study area in the yellow outline. You'll see that Florence goes kind of directly through the plan area. You'll see Garfield goes from north to south that intersects it. You'll see a lot of local landmarks, Pioneer Chicken kind of right at the middle, Encanto Event Center. You'll see just right outside of the plan area, we have library and this building here, so not too far from here. You'll see that City of Bell Gardens kind of situated in the southeast area. The intent of the grant that funded this project is to connect the city, different communities to wider regional transportation corridors. So the most significant proposed regional corridor or regional transportation here is the southeast line that will be going from Union Station downtown through City of Artesia. There's none of these stations are within the city, but there's two stations that are within 3 miles. That's the Firestone Station and the Florence and Salt Lake Station. So the intent again of this plan is to expand choice, expand transit-oriented options, and also to connect the area to the wider region. We've said a couple times transit-oriented community specific plan, but I do want to just discuss what that really means. So what transit-oriented community, what it does, it brings housing, commercial, transportation all together so that you can really do more of your daily tasks, within your community. You don't have to get in a car, jump in a car and go do it. That's really the intent. There's really some high-level key components of transit-oriented development or transit-oriented communities. Those are here on the screen. I know they're pretty small, but generally what these components are is, an emphasis of a mix of uses, intensities, different types of housing, a mix of densities, an emphasis on street design to make it safer, more comfortable, more accessible for all modes, not just cars, not just people on bike, but everyone of all needs as well. There's an emphasis on building design, so making sure we're getting high quality design that meshes well with the community. Another big thing is getting creative with parking management strategies. So to create a transit-oriented community, you want to get people out of cars and on the street. And by implementing these different design aspects and transportation aspects, you can make it safer and easier. And with those parking management strategies, you can address some of the parking concerns and parking issues there. And one of the most important parts is placemaking, is creating a space that is recognizable and that feels, genuine. So through open spaces, plazas, you can really activate an area that people actually want to be in and stay in. And then lastly, the name of the transit-oriented community is that transit aspect. So integrating transit into this community so that you can get around more easily. The public engagement program was vast. It started back in February of last year. So there was 7 separate events.
El programa para alcanzar al público. What happened?
Can I continue?
Looks like there was a technical difficulty.
No worries. So yeah, the public engagement program, it started in February of last year. There was 3 pop-up events, different times of the years, different events. Here on the screen, you'll see the Lions Club event, National Night Out, Winter Wonderland. There was also a virtual open house that was meant to engage people that couldn't attend in person. And really the idea here was we wanted to go where people were and not just have a meeting and expect people to come. So we went to where they were. You'll see on the screen an intercept survey. So we went to the plan area, approached people at either the bus stops or people that we saw coming out of the bus, and really just engage them in what the plan was, what we're trying to do, and get their feedback on what's most helpful, what do you like, what do you not like, what do you want to see more of. We also went on a community walk audit with staff and community members to see what's currently working, what opportunities there are, what things are not working within the plan area. And all the feedback that we received here was directly implemented into the plan. So some of the key takeaways that we got that kept coming up was this idea of or this desire of having affordable housing choices. So everyone wants to live in the community they grew up in. Everyone wants to be able to afford where they want to live. So that was really number one. The biggest takeaway that we got was a desire for more affordable housing. Next was a preference for more human scale development. So when we're talking about human scale development, that really means like people don't want skyscrapers. They don't want, these very huge developments in their neighborhood. They want something that's going to be, appropriate for the city. There's also a desire to have more accessible pedestrian and transit access within the area. And then lastly, they want places to gather. A lot of feedback we got, they felt like there wasn't enough places within the city to gather, and more specifically within our plan area. So we developed this vision statement that really came out of the feedback we got, input that we got from staff and from commission and council, and also just best practices. This vision statement, it's very long, but I do want to call out a couple phrases. So people first, that's something that we came up a lot in outreach. So we include that in the vision statement. Having an area that's available or accessible for residents of all ages and abilities. So we wanted to keep that in there, and then having an area that's accessible and available for current and future generations. So that's all incorporated into the vision statement and for this long-term vision for this area. There's 4 project goals that kind of support that vision statement, and all policies, programs, features of this plan. They are kind of filtered through both the vision statement and these goals. Those 4 goals are related to mobility, prosperity, equity, and placemaking, which is really what we heard from the feedback we got from the community. The plan, we have 6 districts, so the plan is distributed over these 6 districts. And the reason for this is that we wanted to make sure that every district has, it is unique, and we didn't want to go a plan-wide kind of approach where we apply just the same thing across this whole plan area. We really wanted it to feel like a place and feel distinct when you go from district to district. So in a second, we'll go to each one of the districts, but before that, do you want to show what these districts are? So you'll see they're all color-coded, associated with their respective districts. Like I mentioned, we'll go into detail with every single one, but here what I do want to call out is the areas that are not color coded. So you'll see they are part of the plan area, but they don't have a district associated with them. Those areas will keep their existing land use and will not be affected at a later time if it's determined that a district, the city desires to create a district there that's available, but as of now, it's within the plan area, but it's not affected, or it doesn't have the requirements that other districts have within this area. So there is a max capacity for units within the plan area. That max is 381 units. It's distributed across the districts. There is one district that is not that does not allow residential units. That's the Corazon district, which we'll go into in a second. But the Mercado district, District A, that's the densest, the highest intensity district, and that's the district that allows the most amount of units there. So as I mentioned, the cap is 381 units. So those units are distributed across 5 districts. One district, again, the Corazon district, does not allow. But I do want to call your attention to some of these like key development standards. They're not all the development standards, but kind of the highest priority ones. So in the plan area, the maximum height, it ranges from 1 story to 6 stories. So at 1 story is the Corazon district, which is meant to stay low intensity. It's meant to be a gathering space and a public space. So we don't want, very large buildings. We want it to be open, welcoming, and accessible. And then you have the Mercado district, which is the highest intensity, the highest density district at 6 stories. So the reason the Mercado district was selected for that was it's right at the intersection of Florence and Garfield, and it has the greatest access to transit. There's already a station there, a bus stop there, and there's already kind of a character for commercial in that area there. The max FAR, that's the max floor area ratio. That's really calculation of building intensity. It ranges from 0.5 to 3.5. Again, with Corazon being the least, Mercado district being the highest there. The density ranges range from 18 to 25 dwelling units, up to 30 to 65 dwelling units. And one of the biggest things I want to call out is the max parking. You'll see that it's max parking and not minimum parking requirement. And the intent of that is in the spirit of having a transit-oriented community. We want to reduce the amount of car use within the area, and encourage people to be in the street, join and gather within the area, and reduce the maximum parking so that we can utilize the space better. Every district has its own unique ground floor requirement, and that's meant to be tied to its intent of that district. We'll start with the Mercado district. Again, this is the most intense, high intensity district. It's mixed use, ground floor commercial. It does allow for structured parking, and it sits right at that Florence Garfield intersection where the transit access is already high. Commercial activity is already highest within this plan area. The Mercado really, it represents the existing character, which is, retail and busy area. So through the Mercado district, we're wanting to amplify that existing character. Next is the Corazon district. So Corazon, the heart, it's exactly what it is. It's the heart of the plan area, and this is the area that we really focus on as being the most pedestrianized area, the center, the meeting, the gathering space. You'll see there's a lot of public amenities. There's a lot of spaces that can be activated through various events like a mini festival, farmers market, food trucks, stuff like that, events like that. And the intent is really for people to gather here and have in the heart of the area, where people want to stay and people want to hang out, different times of the day. This is the only district also that doesn't allow residential, and that was intentional. Next, we have the Florence Place district. So this is right across from the Corazon district. And this is also a mixed use district. The idea is for ground floor commercial, retail, different uses, offices, with above the ground floor having residential there tied. And we have the Paseo District North. So there's the Paseo District, there's north and south. North is the only district within the plan area that is exclusively residential. So what we got feedback from the community is that we don't want these huge, massive buildings. We want it to be smaller scale, especially when it's abutting existing residential. So we took that and we made sure that it's still human scaled, it's still pedestrian friendly, and it's integrated to the areas outside of the plan area, but also within the plan area there. Paseo South is also has that pedestrian character, but it's mixed use. This is also right at the intersection of Florence and Garfield there. So it's really on the opposite side of that Mercado district. That's the highest intensity. We have the South Florence district, which is more of a transition district from the higher intensity areas, higher density areas to the existing residential areas. So we want to make sure that there's a seamless transition there where we're not having buildings that are towering over existing single family homes there. And this is also a mixed use area. There's areas that are intended for public use. So it could be privately owned, but publicly accessible. Here we have the permitted uses, not a comprehensive list of the permitted uses, but just to highlight it. On page 86 of the plan, you can see the full permitted use table. I just want to call out P is permitted, C is conditionally allowed, so it would require a discretionary approval. And if it has a dash, it's just not allowed. There's a whole chapter on mobility improvements. I'm not going to go through every single one, but you'll see on the screen there's associated mobility improvement with every one of those symbols. The intent of the mobility improvements is to improve safety, comfort, accessibility, to make people feel comfortable, being on any mode of transportation, whether they're walking, whether they're in a wheelchair, whether they're on a bike, skateboard, or even in their car. We just want to make it safe for everyone interacting in this area. We also have public realm improvements. So these are 7 different specific improvements that are proposed. So these could include plazas, pocket parks, paseos, public art areas, and also the Corazon district, that mobility hub area that's intended for people to congregate and hang out in. these are proposed, and within the plan, I do encourage you to go in. They're very detailed. We go and describe and highlight what these potential improvements could look like. I've walked through kind of what the plan is, high level, what it allows, but I do want to take a moment to acknowledge also what the plan does not do, because there is some real and valid concerns of what the plan is, what it allows. But we do want to emphasize that the plan itself, it expands opportunity, and it's not requiring or putting unreasonable expectations on these developments. So what the plan does not do, it doesn't eliminate parking. There's still parking requirements. The plan area cannot exceed 381 units. It does not force development or redevelopment. It doesn't force relocation. It doesn't encourage displacement. This is a plan. It's not a development. It's not an application for a project. So it doesn't initiate construction. It doesn't require anyone to construct or demolish any of that. And it also doesn't prohibit standalone commercial. The timeline of the plan is phased into 3 different, very distinct phases. So there's near term. This is within that 1 to 5 year range. So these are kind of like more immediate actions that can be taken. And the near term actions are meant to attract development. So you can do these, and it encourages the market that says, hey, this is an area, this is a distinct area, it has its own character, and it encourages or attracts development. So these near term improvements are related to, the mobility hub. So that's the Corazon district, pocket parks, wayfinding signage, something that creates the character of this area. Then you have the midterm timeline. This is 6 to 10 years. These are more also mobility and public realm improvements, but also, vehicular improvements, bicycle improvements, some of those kind of longer term that take more funding to incorporate. And then long term, 10 plus years, this is where you get those larger projects that we saw on the screen. So this is where you start seeing the area come to life. Within the plan, there's an established procedures, review authority. Generally, if a proposal came in, they comply with all the standards and the requirements of the plan, that would be considered a ministerial review, where it's, as long as you comply, it can be reviewed and approved without a public hearing. If there's projects that are either deviating from the standards, the requirements, or if there's a larger project or a project that wants to be exclusively commercial, this is where it would go to a public hearing. But again, I want to reiterate, there is a unit cap. So the whole plan area as a whole has a cap of 381 units. As part of this project, we completed an initial study and mitigated negative declaration. That review period began in February 5th and concluded on March 9th of this year. We received 5 public comments. They're Exhibit 6 in your packets. And after analyzing the comments, responding to the comments, we found that no new impacts were identified, and there wasn't an increased severity of those impacts that were already analyzed. This is not an action. The ISM&D, the findings here are not an action that this body will take, but for visibility, we added on here, but the decision for this lies with the city council. And then, before I pass it back to Alfonso, I just want to wrap up. So project started November 2024. Public engagement really ran from the beginning of the project now till now, as we're going through public hearings. The specific plan was officially published for public review in February, at the same time that the CEQA document, the ISM&D, was published. And now we're at our first public hearing with the city council public hearing scheduled for May. So I'll pass it back to Alfonso with that.
Thank you, Brian. Before I go into the other slide, I just wanted to go back to a few. With the ISM&D, you received a comment letter. I was going to pass it over to our CEQA consultant, Jesse, to provide some comments about that letter that you received.
Thank you, no worries. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessie Fan. I worked with Brian and with the city on the ISMND and the CEQA document that you have in front of you today. Earlier today, we did receive a public comment letter from the SAFER, the Supporters Alliance for Environmental Responsibility. Lozo Jury LLP was their representative, and they are the actual commenter, but they are submitting it on behalf of SAFER. Their comment is largely concerning Assembly Bill 617, which largely, requires the state to select communities that are impacted by air pollution. The project site is located in Southeast LA, according to the South Coast AQMD and CARB, which does identify the area. I do want to note, though, as part of AB 617, it does not modify CEQA's significance thresholds related to the analysis that was completed in the CEQA document. Separately, the commenter does also state that they are requesting that the CEQA analysis must include a baseline discussion that includes AB 617, and that because the ISMND does not include that, they are requesting that an environmental impact report be prepared. I do want to note that the project and the ISMND is programmatic in nature, as Bryant and Alfonso described earlier. This CEQA document and approval of the CEQA document does not result in the approval of any physical improvements that would ultimately be developed later on. Those individual projects would have to submit their own applications and do their own CEQA analysis. At that time, part of the mitigation measures that are part of the CEQA document do include the requirement to do an air quality study for each project that comes forward. So at that time, those projects will do their own project-specific analysis, and so that does not ultimately affect the findings that are within the ISMND. I'll turn it back to Alfonso.
Thank you, Jesse. And for the commission, I just wanted to state for the record that the commission received the comment letter at the dais. The public has access to the comment letter in the room with the rest of the agenda items that we have for today's meeting. And also, that was just a brief response to that comment letter. We'll also be drafting a formal response within the final ISMND and providing that to City Council in a more formal setting. Thank you for that. And then another thing I wanted to address was the regulatory framework. The plan has changed a little bit, and I'll go into it in a different slide from the public review comment period draft and the planning commission draft. So there are some projects more so related to use that are going to be ministerial, but any project that does develop this type of housing, if it's at a large scale, they would all be at a large scale, excuse me for saying that one. So housing would have to go through a discretionary project, which would trigger environmental reviews. So they wouldn't be what's called by right.
Excuse me, Alfonso. I'm Chair Barrera. This is Lloyd. Can I interject, please?
Of course.
I just wanted to clarify, Jesse used the term programmatic. I wanted to make sure that was clear to everyone. It's sort of a CEQA buzzword. Programmatic meaning that this project, this transit-oriented communities, is a big overall concept that will then be, so in terms of CEQA, environmental review, it is only being reviewed on that broad, 30,000 foot level. And as Jesse said, it is intended to be followed up with individual projects that will undergo their own individual detailed environmental review. So that's what program means. It's a big picture project. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd, for the clarification. So going on to the rest of the slides and the project. So as part of the project, the city was also required to process a general plan amendment. The purpose of the amendment was to draw consistency between the general plan and the specific plan. The changes to the general plan include a new land use designation, which would be called the transit-oriented community specific plan. Additionally, the land use element of the general plan will incorporate new policies catered to the objectives of that specific plan. A new policy 6 will read, the city shall facilitate the implementation of the transit-oriented community specific plan and encourage compatible land uses as stipulated in the specific plan document. New policy 6.1, ensure that land uses develop in accordance with the specific plan. New policy 6.2, ensure consideration and resolution to project impacts upon surrounding neighborhoods during the design and development process. New policy 6.3, ensure developments offer a rich mix of diverse housing choices, neighborhoods serving retail and welcoming public accessible spaces. New policy 6.4, ensure quality development through use, development standards, and adherence to objective design guidelines. New policy 6.5, promote development that is efficient, pedestrian friendly, promotes right-of-way improvements, and is served by a variety of transportation options. And new policy 6.6, encourage a diverse mix of fiscally sustainable land uses. Here are the changes to the specific plan land use map. On the left is the current designation, which supports what is currently allowed in our municipal code to be constructed on those sites. On the right is the new map, which would support what's allowed in the specific plan. Here are the changes to the zoning code. We are also processing a zone code amendment. These changes establish a new zone. So the new zone would be TOC, Transit Oriented Community Specific Plan. And here are the changes to the zoning map. On the left is the existing zoning, and on the right is a depiction of the new zone. In addition, aside from the work that we did in the community engagement that was conducted throughout the project on February 26th, the city also sent out notices to all property owners and tenants within the specific plan area and within 500 feet of the plan area. And the notice was also published in the newspaper and at various city facilities. On March 18th, the item was continued by the Planning Commission to a date certain of today, April 15th. And once again, on April 3rd, courtesy notice was sent out in the same manner that the first notice was sent out. And just for clarification, it was just a courtesy notice, not a required notice. Staff received 6 written comments, excluding the secret comments that were received in total. Individuals also visited our public counter and reached out by phone. Also on March 18th, the Planning Commission heard testimony related to the project during non-agenda public comment. All written comments or testimony were provided to the Planning Commission in their package for this item in the agenda and were published for public review. In summary, I'd like to summarize those comments. Concerns regarding forced displacement of businesses and residents. There was concerns related to the increase in property values and rents for businesses and residences. There was a request to consider right of first return for businesses, a request for additional information related to specific properties, request to consider affordability requirements, and lastly, consideration of specific bicycle infrastructure and concerns for the type of bicycle infrastructure that's conceptualized for the south of Garfield Avenue. And for the record, staff would like to point out that there were changes to the specific plan between the public review draft and the Planning Commission draft. One change was to emphasize legal nonconforming standards. The legal nonconforming standards are changes that we wanted to highlight that specify the rights of businesses that are currently there and their right to remain as is per our code, unless their leases ran out and then there was not an agreement with the property owners, or they had ceased to operate for more than 6 months. But outside of those stipulations, they're allowed to stay as long as they like and as long as they have an agreement to do so. Secondly, also, we added the ability for the developments to construct exclusively commercial projects. This was done to alleviate potential state law conflicts when it comes to city meeting certain residential capacities and to allow future flexibility in case the objectives of the plan don't become realized. Next, the plan emphasizes the future projects require discretionary review. This helps ensure that we do comprehensive reviews for the project in terms of our standards and in terms of environmental review. We also emphasize that regardless of the UNICAP, developers can still exercise density bonus requirements that may elevate them past that UNICAP. Staff also clarified in the specific plan that the actual unit cap is on 381 and not 402. The CEQA analyzed 402, but the plan allows for 381, which is a typical process. Sometimes CEQA over reviews what can be done. Just as long as we're over and not under what we're actually doing, we're okay. And lastly, with reading comments requesting that the project incorporate affordability, we added an implementation action for potentially incorporating inclusionary housing standards into the specific plan and our code in general. In conclusion, staff recommends that the planning commission, one, find that the initial study / mitigated negative declaration was prepared in accordance with and pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, on concluding that less significant impacts would occur with mitigations. Two, adopt resolution PC 2026-04, recommending the city council adopt an ordinance approving the Bell Gardens TOC specific plan and certify the mitigated negative declaration. Three, adopt resolution PC 2026-05, recommending the city council adopt an ordinance approving a general plan amendment for the TOC. Four, adopt resolution PC 2026-06, recommending the city council adopt an ordinance approving a zone code amendment to establish the new zone. And five, adopt resolution PC 2026-07, recommending the city council adopt an ordinance approving the zone change map. And with that, staff concludes its presentation. We are available for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Flores, and thank you, Mr. Hernandez, and thank you for the report. We will now move to commissioner questions or comments. Does any commissioner have any questions, or who wants to start it off?
Hi. Thank you for that presentation. It was fast. There's so much in it and it was fast. So I do have some questions. My first question is, when we're talking about 381 units, how did we arrive at that number? Who determined 381? How was that determined?
Yeah, I can answer that question. So when we came to the number, we had a couple of things in mind. Was one is that there's a threshold within CEQA that we couldn't surpass a certain unit number. We didn't come close to that. I believe the unit, I don't know that number at the top of my head, but I believe it was somewhere in the 500s, right? So we were for sure wanting to stay under that. So we weren't going to choose any densities that are above that, right? Although we could get to 500, as Brian mentioned, we did want to create buffers between our single family residential, so that dwindled down the number even more. Another thing that we also wanted to do was kind of stay focused on construction type. So that 381 kind of puts us in a level of what's called type 5 construction. So it doesn't require major structural incorporation to be placed on those, like steel beams and things of that nature. So we wanted to stay under that too. So that 381 kind of gave us that number there. Right, going above that would probably require some specialized structural components, or would kind of dwindle down that buffer that we create between single family and this center. Yeah.
Thank you.
If I may, another one too is we also wanted to stay consistent with that scale, the human scale that Brian was talking about. And the other thing too is one of our districts is about 60 units per acre, I believe 65 units per acre. And that's something that you see that is common in these TOC specific plans, but you'll notice that the other districts are pretty far below that. So again, to create that human scale.
So just to be clear, and I think that to maybe calm maybe my nerves and some business owners' nerves and people's nerves about this whole plan is it's an idea. It's a concept of how we could reach those 381 units, right? How we can create those 381 units. Now, I'm noticing a few contradictions because, on the one page, we're saying, okay, well, there's no loss of parking. There's no forced people, businesses from moving out. There's no displacement for people. I understand this is creating housing and not eliminating existing housing, which is great. My concern is for our local businesses, because as I'm seeing on the plan, I'm seeing some of these buildings that are like put onto where existing businesses are now. So what happens? Like, is this just an idea? Is this something that we're looking to develop it as, if we approve this, are we looking to develop it as it is presented on the plan? Or once, if we approve this, can we then say, okay, you know what, that's not going to work for this area? Because if we're talking about, businesses that are not going to be displaced, from what I see on here, I'm like, where did Ozzy's go, right? Where did, certain businesses go? Where did the restaurant go? Where do they fit in this proposed plan? So if you can explain that, maybe how we address that. I'd appreciate it.
Of course, before I get into answering the question, I did want to specify something for the record and for the planning commission's information. So our plan requires parking, right? There are state laws that may grant a developer zero parking. There's certain thresholds that they have to meet, like one, that they're not creating impacts for the nearby uses that they have. On what we would require our developers to do is submit a parking study to ensure that there isn't those studies. If the study did indicate that there was impact, then we would still be able to apply our parking standards. However, with that, I also like to say if a study indicated that there wasn't an impact, then they would be allowed to not provide parking. So just wanted to clarify that one. In terms of the other one, in terms of what the plan doesn't do, the plan doesn't force displacement. So I'll give you an example. It was brought up at the last planning commission through the non-agenda public comment on. We have tenants that have leases for the next 20 years. So this does nothing to that lease. They have an agreement with the property owner to be there for 20 years. Unless they've decided to change those agreements, they get to stay there. And the city and this plan does not force them to relocate or move. What it does do is provide property owners options. So if a lease was up and a property owner did want to redevelop it, then at that point they would potentially tell their current tenants to relocate.
I also want to clarify that all the images up there are conceptual. So that's just what at max, at full build out, that's what it could look like. It's not requiring anybody to build that or for it to even look like that. That's just what it would allow conceptually.
And one final question, are we required to create 381 units? Can we be below that if it doesn't fit in with what we already have going on in terms of businesses and where they're located and all that?
Yes, thank you for that question. So no, we're not required to build 381. The plan does require, if you're going to do residential, we've set ranges. So if we could pop up the presentation one more time, or if I could direct you to the right page.
Slide 14.
One, two, 5, 6, 7. So it's 7 pages into the staff report, and hopefully, oh, there we go. Oop. So here we see when we see density ranges, so it's the 4th row. We see 30 to 60. So if using the Mercado district, for example, if somebody were to propose residential, we would require that they do at least 30, right? So more than half, or less than half of what the maximum would be. We do that because the plan has goals and objectives. If somebody wanted to build 10 units, then it wouldn't be meeting those goals and objectives, right? This is what we've determined as a staff with our professional recommendation is that's the lowest where you can still get that feel of what we're trying to accomplish with this specific plan. But also they can also propose exclusively commercial if a property owner said, hey, I don't want to build residential. I've had my property for 100 years and this is how I want to stay. The plan also allows them to do that too. So no, you don't have to do residential. If they do decide to propose it, these would be the ranges that they have to stick to. And to clarify what Brian was saying, or to add to what Brian was saying, was that's just a conceptual. So when we flip through it, this is the max build. So this what you see is 381 units. They can decide.
It's not the final product. That's not what it's going to look like.
That's not what it's going to look like. What it does conceptualize is we have design guidelines within the specific plan that say you need to be X feet away from the street, or within after a certain length of your building, you have to have breaks. You have to set yourself back in 5 feet or 10 feet. I'm forgetting at this point, have public spaces there. So what it does do, it tries to capture that. But if a developer says like, hey, I just want to build on half of it, they can do that as well. As long as they meet those objective design standards, guidelines that we have, and standards that we have in the specific plan.
In addition to that, the layouts, how they're set up, is just also conceptual. It can be flipped completely the different direction, or stay in the commercial can stay and then add to it. So this is all developer driven. It's not city driven. So if a developer comes in asking, owns the property, first, if they have to own the property, or are negotiating to buy the property, then they would come to the city. And this is it's to make it easier for development, not only for the property owner, but also for development in the future. So to ease folks' concerns, no one is getting displaced. We're not doing the project. We're just providing the guidance for the owners, property owners, and development in the future to guide what we want to see for the city of Bell Gardens and for its community.
God, I have a lot of questions, sorry. I'm glad that you included the inclusionary housing portion in there in the plan. So, I mean, I guess the details of what that looks like in Bell Gardens, we wouldn't have those details now. That would be at the point whenever something is developed, right? But if you can explain what inclusionary housing means for folks, just for those who may not understand what that means, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course. So I'd like to clarify too, is that we've added it as an implementation. So essentially what that is you voting on policy and kind of direction to a certain extent for staff to seek doing that, right? So if it's something that you really wanted to do, we could further emphasize it in this plan. And what that does is provide support and direction for staff to be able to implement that. But inclusionary housing in the plan currently, there is no affordability requirements. Right? Inclusionary housing would be us passing ordinances or passing specific policies within the specific plan that require certain thresholds for affordability. So inclusionary housing could be that every project require that 20% moderate be built as part of that project, right? I would like to state is that the reason why we haven't included it is because there's a lot of study that comes in doing that. So what we'd like to avoid, and the reason why we didn't include affordability here, is because staff doesn't have the feasibility studies to determine what affordability can be built or what the market is lent to. If we were to apply affordability and say, let's do 100% low income, staff doesn't know whether that can actually be built. So what we like to avoid is what we call is putting a plan up on the shelf and not using it, right? So we don't think construction is going to happen tomorrow or a proposal are going to happen tomorrow. I do think we have some time to try to implement something. And what that would happen, inclusionary studies, we'd go out to see what the market is actually allowing for affordability and then require that to happen.
So essentially, we're looking, what you guys are seeking here today is for us to allow zoning changes, things like that would then allow for further development at whatever point that would happen.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Just really quick. I do appreciate adding the slide about what the plan does not do. I think that clarifies many concerns among the community. So definitely thank you for that. But going back to the people who lease their homes, right? Some people lease, but others live month to month, basically. So for those people that are living month to month, how does the tenant protection the city has, does that kick in at that point?
It does. And for further clarification, we do have housing staff on the line, but I believe there's certain properties that are eligible, but I'll let them further explain so that I don't speak out of turn.
So your question is if the current tenants that are on a month-to-month, they would. The tenant protection policies are required to provide notification from the landlord to the tenant if they are to be either not evicted, but asked to take over the property. So if they're asked to vacate the property, they have to go through the process of either paying them relocation benefits or providing them the necessary notices in order for them to meet state and our local requirements.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So I think I'm just trying to find out if they would be forced.
If a property owner is wanting to develop their site, then they would go through the process, but they would be required to be paid the relocation benefits. but they could ask them to vacate if they're on a month-to-month. They could happen to anybody outside of even, and not even any specific plan. It can happen to any resident and lives here.
Hey, thank you for that. And I know that the the plan overall is to have a more transit-oriented community. I know in paper that sounds really good, but I know a big concern within the community is safety, right? Does this plan kind of take that into consideration? Safety, any safety measures to be implemented? I know it's a big reason why people now don't want to do public transit.
Yes, thank you for that. So we did take into consideration, and I'll let our consultant Laura kind of speak to that a little bit more.
Evening, Commissioners. So this plan doesn't modify or the operations of transit lines. That's outside the purview of this plan. But within the study area, we're proposing certain mobility improvements, such as expanded sidewalks, notably at Florence and Garfield, proposing what's called a pedestrian scramble. So having an exclusive pedestrian phase for pedestrians to cross the street and have their own phase there. When we look at the access to Toller from Florence Avenue, we're proposing a traffic signal there to allow for trucks to safely make that movement from Florence Avenue onto Florence Place to continue north up to Garfield, because it is a truck route and we need to maintain that. So providing that protected movement for vehicles to make that left-hand turn is another safety feature that also provides a pedestrian crossing across that new driveway that's created. High visibility crosswalks, as well as a number of upgrades to the traffic signals. So really focused on pedestrian safety, controlled movements of trucks. And then for bikes, we're providing a number of enhanced bike facilities, including cycle tracks along Garfield Avenue, and then the new Class 1 path under the shared use path along the power lines connecting north. I can go into more specifics. I don't know if
Commissioner or Vice Chair, if I could add too. So this is also conceptual. So these are more so recommendations on our Public Works Department is not tied to having to do this specifically. What I imagine our Public Works Department, I'm almost sure our Public Works Department would do, was establish further feasibility studies and ensure the safety of the improvements that they do. Another thing I wanted to add is the Public Works Department is currently working on a Safe Streets for All, which takes into those things into account as well.
And just to add to that, if a future development comes in, they would also be a partner in doing some of these infrastructure improvements as part of their project, especially if they're doing a larger development. Typically we ask for infrastructure improvements that would be in line with the specific plan if it was approved.
Thank you so much for that clarification. I know that a big part of the project is the fact that we are also getting the future, the Southeast Gateway, the line. I believe based on the information given, it's 3 miles away from the stop that's gonna be closer to us. So basically, with this plan, what would it change now? What would be different from now, basically? Because we're still at that same distance, but what makes it easier for people to reach that?
In terms of distance, it would be the same thing. In terms of the improvements that we talked about, in terms of potentially what happens with these TOC plans is sometimes Metro also does a I forget the exact term, Brian, the hub. I forget. Micromobility hub that provides amenities for individuals who use active transportation or bus, like in specific, like fixing of bikes or equipment for them to fix their flat tires and things of that nature. What it does is tries to encourage, or more so not discourage, individuals from using that public transit, making it easier for them, trying to provide extra amenities for them to be able to take that 3-mile bike ride or walk or or bus.
Right. Thank you for that. And then do we know of any other cities that have implemented a plan like like the TLC, but has this happened in other cities around us?
Other cities have, I'll defer to Kimley Horton Associates. They've worked on some other ones as well in other cities as well.
Yeah, the closest to here, it's not currently adopted, but it's soon to be adopted in Pico Rivera. There's a TLC at the intersection of Washington and Rosemead. So there's that one. It's still, you know, you're ahead of that, but yeah, all over city of LA, there's a lot of like smaller area plans for specific areas. Typically, you'll see what they call TOD, so transit oriented development plan. So it's just for one single development. This plan is intended to be TOC, so the community, so a little wider, and it's not focused on one specific development. But yeah, you'll see this cities like in San Gabriel Valley, like Pasadena, that's a big one. But yeah, you see them kind of within the region.
Oh, thank you. And then the funding that we got for this project, what happens if this was to not get approved? What would happen to that funding?
On what would happen to the funding? So our responsibility is to create a plan, is not to approve a plan. So if you didn't approve the plan, I don't want to say nothing happens to the fund, but essentially nothing would happen. If the question is, would we have to repay the funding? The answer is no.
All right, thank you.
Well, I just heard Pasadena. I work in Pasadena, so I'm seeing that a lot. So the thing that's hitting, and I don't want to compare Bell Garden to Pasadena either, is simply you have a lot of these buildings are empty now because a lot of folks are working from home. So you have a lot of empty buildings now, and there's a lot of businesses closing down too. So what they're trying to do is called mixed use, right? Kind of, or even TLCs, where they're getting these buildings and repurposing them to create condos and just different stuff, right? So here I just have a lot of not questions, but a lot of thoughts too, right? Because I have seen this in other cities as well, like especially in the Inland Empire. But there's a lot of mixed use spaces now where the goal is to integrate everything together, right? I guess that kind of sounds like we're trying to do here. But transportation, why I wonder, because I'm a consultant for healthcare, right? So my brain keeps going as far as the questions we're asked. Like where residents ask how many of those folks use public transportation here in Bell Gardens? Because that would be key to find out, right? How many people actually use public transportations? Because I'm sure a lot of them work not in the city, but who knows, a couple miles away or even 10 to 20 miles away, right? How does that work for them? Another thing, right? If that whole project with the rail system coming to Southeast LA, is there going to be a dedicated bus from Bell Gardens to go straight over there instead of making multiple stops? And the reason I'm saying that because there's a lot of crime. I'm telling you, because my father just passed away not so long ago. So I work in Pasadena. My mom's here, and she's trying to use public transportation because she had an incident where now she's not using it at all. So there's stuff like that I want to talk to. And then Commissioner Gomez, thank you for bringing up as far as my concern is business owners, residents as well. There's just a lot of questions with that. Another thing, I know there's affordability making, I mean, it all depends, right? There's like a limit or a percentage that you could do the projects, but I guess that we'll find out when that happens, right? Because this is just a plan. But the other thing to consider is what about those residents from Bell Gardens that want to own a home because they can't even afford it? Because there's a lot of folks that are renting or living with their parents that don't want to move out. They want to live in Bell Gardens. So where they have first dibs as well for these homes. So yeah, just some thoughts right now.
To address this as a policy, so whenever we're doing housing development that's sponsored by the city or working with the city, they're asking for an entitlement and they're doing for sale housing, we can ask for percentages of units being made available to local residents. So that is something we can do, especially if we're the sponsor of the project. So we do have a few properties that we're working on. But in these particular projects, we could, if they're asking for something, we can ask for something in exchange.
Yeah.
And just finally, full disclosure, this for me is a dream city. Something like this is a dream for me because I ride bikes. I love bikes. I think that bikes are great, but you have to have the infrastructure for it. You have to have the safety factors put into that. Housing near transit is great because if we're talking about pollution, which is one of the things that was in this letter, right? Talking about pollution, how do we reduce pollution? Well, get out of your car, get on your bike, take your bike, ride the bus to the metro, whatever it is that you need to do, even if it's local, right? I mean, I'm not going to give up my car because I can't ride my bike everywhere, right? But to the extent that I can take my bike somewhere, that reduces pollution and it reduces congestion and it reduces traffic, right? So I appreciate what is all in this plan, but I also know that there is a way that this can be implemented, this can be fleshed out in a way that will be good for businesses, right? Good for our residents, and that will connect us to more mass transit because gas is $6 a gallon, okay? And the only way that we're going to get out from under $6 a gallon is by reducing our dependence on it, right? So, and in terms of health, walking, riding a bike, getting on your scooter, all of that is good for your health anyway. So, in general, yes, I love this, but I know that there's a way that we can make it so that it's good for everyone. So, for anybody who's scared out there looking at this plan and saying, oh my God, they're going to put this 6-story building on this corner. Not necessarily, right? Right now, my understanding is that we're just looking at amending the zoning codes so that we can see what's possible, so that we can achieve what's possible with this plan, right? At least that's how I see it. So, thank you.
I just wanted to add to that. You said infrastructure. Yeah, we need the infrastructure because even in cities like where my dad was from in Mexico, Monterrey, San Pedro, one of the richest cities, I think, of all Latin America, but that's a little different because they have the infrastructure and they're doing that. But also in Monterrey, Mexico, they're building monorails. They're focusing on transportation. They're focusing on projects like this over there. So it's just a matter of having the infrastructure and how it's going to work for everybody in the community, basically.
Do we have any other comments by the commissioners?
I actually have a question regarding that statement. Is this a portion for comments as well, or will we have comments after we hear from the public?
I'll defer to city attorney. I believe, go for it.
Repeat that, please.
Yeah, I was just wondering if this portion is strictly for questions. And now that we've heard some comments as well, but will there be time to make comments after we hear from the public as well?
After commissioner comments, you'll be able to respond, but after that, no. So it'll just be commissioner comments, public comment, and you can respond generally, direct staff.
If I may, this is this is Lloyd. So we're talking about there will be public comment from the public, and then the question is, will the commissioners be able to then chime in again? Is that the question?
Yes, that is my question.
Okay, so generally speaking, until there's a motion and a vote, and as long as you're recognized by the chair, nothing stops the commissioners from talking. So sometimes there's confusion about that because there may be the commission may decide to so-called close the public hearing, and that usually refers to an end to public comment, but nothing ever stops commissioners from deliberating amongst themselves. You're always free to talk as long as you're recognized by the chair. And then there will be a motion and a vote. That's kind of the end of it.
Thank you.
Do we have any other comments or questions by the commissioners?
Not a lot, but for me, I just want to hear from the community here, especially those that are in these areas, business owners and people that live in the surrounding affected areas. I would love to hear from everybody.
Yeah, well, if there are no more comments or questions, before I open public comments, we will be taking a 5-minute recess, coming back at 6:47 p.m.
Meeting is now being live streamed.
Thank you, Secretary. We will now open public participation for this item. Secretary, please announce the instructions for public participation.
The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on public hearing item number 5.2. Please state your name for the record before addressing the members of the Planning Commission. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to speak may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to speak by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or the microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from the members of the public that are physically present in the council chamber. If you haven't done so already, please submit all comment cards now. One written comment has been submitted and distributed to commissioners.
All right, so I have the comment cards with me. I will be calling up everybody who submitted a comment card. First off, we have Veronica Soto. All right, thank you, Veronica, for coming. 3 minutes.
Good evening to everyone. My family has been here since 1962. So of course, we've seen the evolution of Bell Gardens over all of these decades. I see the value and I appreciate the effort that was put in place in order to get us to this point. However, the magnitude and the long-term implications of this plan are significant and deserve to have extensive consideration by this commission and more input from a cross-section of Bell Gardens residents and businesses before it goes to City Council for consideration and approval. We must not rush to approve this plan and the corresponding ordinances. Therefore, my request is that the commission delay a decision on the plan today to enable responsible review, comment, and actions. In other words, extend the public comment period for this plan, but make sure that you have strategic outreach so that you have more than 5 people sending you comments, written comments. The proposed ordinances will have an impact on this commission's and the public's say in the development of these future projects. This plan is the key to making the public voices heard. So there must be adequate and meaningful community input before the plan is approved. The public review draft, which I saw, it's almost 300 pages. And it was executed in 2 months ago. Yet we are here being rushed in reviewing this plan and approving this plan. At this point, this draft should be shared with more, again, residents and businesses in a series of in-person community forums, as well as virtual forums, in order to get more input and educate the community. The community, most of them don't even know what this plan is. A lot of them don't even know what a general plan is. And so I think this is an opportunity to educate the community and also walk them through this impactful plan. The community outreach for a plan of this scale, what I consider to be, inadequate. Executing 4 pop-ups, 1 virtual event, and 2 survey walks is not meaningful approach to reach residents for meaningful input. I live a block away from this proposed area. I live off of Emo and Florence, and I did not receive notification. So I must be living 501 feet away from this area, anticipating that I would not be impacted, but yet I know that I will be impacted. A friend who actually is not even a BG resident is the one who told me about this plan because she saw it on Instagram. The feedback received at the pop-ups was important, yet not reflected in the plan. Specifically, the concern about high-density housing development. This plan promotes high-density housing, and I do not believe that this is in the best interest of Bell Gardens for a variety of reasons. Affordable housing is needed. Oh, my time is running out. 381 units is too high. Make it 3 stories, limit it there. It's going to affect air quality, traffic, police, response times, greater demand for cost services, and greater impact on our local schools. For these reasons, I ask this commission to go ahead and reconsider, to open it up for more public comment, do more outreach to get better feedback and educate this community as to what this plan really means for them and for our local businesses. We need to protect our local businesses. These businesses survived.
Ma'am, your time has expired.
I know, city attorney, I know. But again, how many people provided input on this? More support. They survived COVID. They need to be able to support this plan. Respect our small businesses.
Thank you, Veronica. Next, we have Brenda Donelan.
Hi. So I agree with that lady. She's smart. Anyway, yeah, we're worried about the traffic that this is going to create, the pollution that it's going to create in the traffic, that because you guys or this city does not take care of the pollution that's already here. The people that drive down residential streets over 3,000 pounds continue to drive over it, even though you granted us humps, and they speed in between because they think it's funny. Anyway, yeah, so there's a lot of things that still need to be done. And we have a lot of homeless people that can't even get housing because their IDs aren't correct. They don't have all the information they need, although they are here and trying to survive. We need to care for them. Let's see, you need to think about that property on the other side of the furniture business, between furniture business and Lingle. There's property there you guys can take advantage of. I don't know who owns that. I know Lingle owns it, but they went out of business. But the empty property in between, just sitting there. And the schools. Okay, so all of this is going to create more children and to come to live in this city, and there not going to be enough schooling or room for them. We already have people blocking the streets trying to pick up their kids. People are constantly having to walk the kids to school, and everything is, I mean, how big is this city anyway? I call it 1 square mile or 1 square triangle, because that's about how big this thing is. Where do you fit 240 acres of land? That's what I want to know, right? It's 240 acres you guys are talking about. I saw that in writing. Anyway, I guess that's a good question. Also, safety. My kid was knocked on the head with a bottle standing at a bus stop, and by someone who was on drugs. You guys arrested him and couldn't hold him because he was homeless, and you just let him back out on the street on Monday after she got smacked on Friday. And what happened to that guy? You know, what are we doing to help these people? I mean, and now we're going to add more people in these high rises that you think we can help them if the place catches on fire, someone has a diabetic coma. How fast is that rescue unit going to get down that street that you use for a road diet? Are you guys going to road diet our streets more? Because you already road dieted it when you took out the center divider lane and put plants there. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you, Brenda. Next up, we have Osvaldo Castro. Okay. Next up, we have Rick Donelan.
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, there was a letter that went out from Caltrans to the city planner, correct? And in that letter, I read 3 times they mentioned road diet. Have you guys ever drove through a road diet? Or do you know what a road diet is? For instance, if they have 3 lanes and they'll cone them off and then designate a lane for bicycles, and now you have 2 lanes for all the traffic, all the rescue equipment, all the buses. So my concern is the traffic nightmare that it may concern, that it may develop from down Florence Avenue where we live, all these cars idling, rescue equipment trying to get through. You know, everybody's stuck in traffic, cutting down my street, cutting down Emil, cutting down Crest, cutting down Perry Road. So, that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Next up, we have Laura Arts.
Good evening, honorable commissioners. Laura Arts at your service, known as Linda. Thank you for your work, because what we have been doing is seeing how you work so hard, but all of the people who are here are also hardworking, and we are tired. And you must be asking why I've come, because I have a business for more than 30 years. It would be the same as trying to move a big tree. When you try to move it, it dries. So all of us who are here are very we're anguished because we're here about a problem with housing. That's why we're telling the council, because you are our representatives. They look out for the well-being of the community, not just the well-being of a few. So I beg you to please take into consideration, this is overpopulated, the city more than 30%. We have to, we would have to move around by airplane because the parking is impossible. It's chaos. It's impossible. And now with the modifications that they're making of all of the signage all over, there's a piece of cement and 6 signs there saying go this way, go that way. There are a lot of needs in the city, believe me. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Laura. Next up is
Thank you so
Ray
much,
Leal.
Laura. Ray Leal.
Good evening, Planning Commission. All the staff is here. I'm also a chaplain for the city, and it's always an honor to be here. I'm here not as a chaplain. I'm here as a citizen. I'm here as a pastor of Bear Gardens Christian Church. And it really worries me, 381 units. That's almost 2,200 people if we put into each house 2 parents and 4 kids. I mean, that's, I do not have the numbers of how many houses are there at the present, and how many people live in that area, but definitely it's not 2,280 practically. I wouldn't even imagine what they were saying, the traffic, and all the other problems that we're gonna have as citizens. You know, I live probably 8 minutes walking from my church, and I do have a bike, and I use it. So as many things that do worry us, and I hope that you guys can consider all the opinions of the people, you know, that we live here, because we're the ones that live here. And I thank you, Councilwoman Gabriela Gomez, for Commissioner, okay, for being here and caring about us, and please consider the opinions of each one of us, you know, and thank you for listening to us, and this is great, where we can have our leaders listen to the citizens, And we'll be praying for this, that will be in God's will, and it'll be for the best of everybody. So thank you again. And I only have one question. If will be, for all the residents and the business owners, um, will be forced to sell if the plan, or what is the answer to that? Will be forced to sell the business or sell the home? Because we own two homes, and my children live right in front of us, and they own two homes right in front of us, and we're so close to the church, and where everybody in our family works somehow as part of the ministry there. So what's the answer to that?
We'll ask staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Next up, last comment card I have is from Ricardo Arevalo.
Good evening, my name is Ricardo Arevalo. Thank you for the time. Thank you for everybody being here. I'm a resident of Bell Gardens, and unfortunately, I just found out about what's happening a week ago. I don't think a lot of people know what's going on. If they did know, I think there'd be a lot more people here if they knew how they were going to be impacted. I think people are uninformed to have this put on them, and once it's done, well, it's done. Um, we do live next to the 710. I mean, it's already a lot of pollution there. The footprint where it's at, just by looking at it, it's really, really condensed. This would definitely deviate police. It would be more derived in one area than the whole area. And if that would be the case, then the residents would be affected by having less policing in the rest of the city, because it would be just in a new place. I deliver mail, and I kind of know how this goes. The nice area gets really, really protected. Everything else gets blown to the side. So it's unfortunate that the money would at one point would have to be diverted, and it would have to go where the investment is at, and not where the community is at. Gentrification. I mean, would this be the beginning of gentrification? In the sense that people are blue collar people here, and they're not making millions of dollars. So property taxes and everything else that gets added on to their taxes at the end of the year, they have to make it up. For homeowners, it's just one more thing to worry about. Our community business, we need our community business. Just by losing Super A, I've noticed I have to travel more. And it's just not that. It's everyone else that's working here, that's making a living, that's going to be affected as well. So would this be eminent domain from this plan? Is that the way would the people be forced to sell, like with no option at market value, if they don't want to sell? Or how would that work? Apart from that, I do want to see Bell Gardens go forward. It'd be nice, but I really do think that more people need to be involved for a happy medium or a co-balance. Where things aren't being put on them if they don't want them. If people aren't being included and they don't want it, then it's not gonna turn out good. I mean, it has to work for the people in the community, and if they don't know what's going on, then it's just like putting a Whole Foods in here. It's not gonna do good if the people don't want to spend there, or if people don't want that. So I really do wish that I knew about this a lot earlier. It's unfortunate, and well, I hope you guys take it into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. If there are no objections by the Planning Commission, I will close public.
I'm sorry, Vice Chair.
Yes.
We have someone in Zoom.
Okay, yes, can we hear?
Caller with number that ends with the last three
Escuchado
numbers,
con
989,
últimos tres
please
números
dial star 6 from
989.
your phone
Por favor,
or
marque,
select the
marque
microphone
estrella 6 de
icon
su
to unmute,
teléfono.
from your device and proceed with your comment.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hola, ¿me oyen?
Yes. Your time
Hi,
is
my name is Milton Lucian. And I'm not a resident, but I'm a property owner. Just want to clarify that. And I did get the notice that was so-called courtesy notice. I think that one, shouldn't be a courtesy, it should be a mandatory because this meeting was postponed. Two, this notice should go to the residents as well, i.e. my tenants. There are 3 tenants in my property. I don't believe any of them got this notice. To echo what was just mentioned, more people need to be aware of what's going on because it will impact them directly, not just the property owners, myself, but the tenants. Notice, I don't believe were sent to them. And that should be rectified going forward so that the commission, as well as the council, hears from the people directly impacted. And I want to, applaud Commissioner Gomez for her questions and inquiries. I think more of that needs to happen. And I want to applaud Veronica, the first speaker. I'm not going to repeat everything she said. Ditto. As if I only have 3 minutes, so I don't want to repeat every single point she mentioned, but I agree with everything that she brought up and should be addressed by this commission or the council. And then another element that was brought up, and I'm just echoing here, is eminent domain. For this plan to go forward and be implemented to 100%, the developer has to acquire the property. So what if property owners don't want to sell? I mean, we already expressed, or there's already address as to the renters, they get reimbursed. But if a property owner doesn't want to sell and wants to use that property for their retirement, because a lot of property owners are not corporate America, they're mom and pops, myself included. So what will happen there? Will eminent domain be imposed and be forced upon the property owner, the small property owner, to sell that property so that, 381 units can be built? So those are my comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments, Secretary?
Yes, we do. Zoom ID, Aleja, please select the microphone icon to unmute from your device and proceed with your comment.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good evening, Vice Chairperson and Commissioners. This is Aleja Kretcher. I'm an attorney with Lozo Drury, speaking on behalf of Supporters Alliance for Environmental Responsibility. We're concerned that the initial study and an MND are improper under CEQA due to the failure to adequately assess the project's potentially significant environmental impacts. In particular, the MND improperly assessed the environmental setting and baseline of this project. Southeast LA was selected as a high priority community for air pollution impacts under AB 617. That means it was identified as having one of the highest cumulative exposure burdens for criteria pollutants and toxic air contaminants. In 2021, the South Coast AQMD approved and adopted the Community Emissions Reduction Plan, or the CERP, for Southeast LA to start addressing the disproportionately high exposure burdens and environmental justice impacts. Though AB 617 may not impact significance thresholds, it does identify the on-the-ground conditions that make up the environmental setting of this project that then determine significance. Though the MND analyzes attainment and non-attainment as it relates to South Coast's air quality management plan, it makes no mention of this community designation as an AB 617 environmental justice community. In doing so, it fails to describe the environmental setting and thereby fails to adequately analyze the true air quality, environmental justice, and cumulative impacts of the project. Additionally, the MND neglected to analyze the ways in which the project may be inconsistent with the CERP, This is improper because under CEQA, a project's inconsistency with local plans and policies itself constitutes significant impacts. Earlier in the presentation, it was said that the impacts were properly analyzed because the project is programmatic in nature. CEQA is clear that you have to analyze any reasonably foreseeable impacts of a project. The additional commercial build-outs and 381 residential units are reasonably foreseeable, and thus their impacts have to be analyzed now. In response to the notion that this is merely programmatic plan or idea, I'd note what was said earlier in the presentation. Any proposed construction in the second or third phase of the project would be ministerial, as long as they're in line with the project's vision. This means that this is the only time that an impacts analysis under CEQA will be required, and the only time that the public will be informed or have a say on the potential impacts. Additionally, the MND, oh, sorry, I said that. For these reasons, an environmental impact report should be prepared for the project to ensure that the realistic, potentially significant impacts of this project are fully disclosed, analyzed, and mitigated. Thank you.
Thank you.
No one else has their hands raised virtually.
If there are no objections by the Planning Commission, I will close public participation at 7:21 p.m. And before I close out public hearing, are there any comments or questions by the commissioners?
Yes, I do have some comments. So based on the plan itself, there was a study, a downtown revitalization study in 1978 that highlighted some challenges that this plan is now trying to solve per se. And although this is all just based on what I read on the plan, by the way, there seems that, plans were started, but merchants and other property owners were also not very interested at the time. We're seeing this as we hear others, oppose this plan. And however, the plan itself also is telling us that this area is, quote, relatively high intensity development and existing conditions are significantly underbuilt, meaning a lot of what our team has put together in the plan is not like worlds away to like think that it's possible, given that, like I said, plans had been made in the past in the 70s, which is well overdue for some, development. And as we see, not much has been done because no one seemed to be interested. And we also haven't seen that on its own without a set plan. It's still, like I already quoted, it's significantly underbuilt. So with that being said, I think that a lot of the concerns people expressed today is exactly what this plan is trying to solve. When people quote, houseless folks, whatever your definition of houselessness is, that's kind of the reason why we're trying to also then build housing units, with, as we say, the cap being 381, if I'm not mistaken, and doing the math based on the ranges, the lowest would be 126 units, if that's correct. Can I get a yes?
I think we're gonna trust your math on that one.
Okay, alrighty. I may be off on the number, but again, 381 being the highest, and that was also something that I heard tonight, saying that 381 is way too much. As we know, 381 is not the set number. It seems to be that that's like the absolute most this plan would allow. So the absolute least being 126, it seems, again, based on the math I've done. I also noticed that people are concerned for traffic, and by doing this plan, the name itself should tell you it's transit oriented, meaning it would hopefully like encourage people to use other modes of transportation. I personally, I'm a big proponent for sustainability, and not that long ago, we also were working on or discussing the climate action plan. And with that also came, the biggest thing we're trying to do, which is mitigate greenhouse gas emissions. So this plan would help that plan. So it's very symbiotic to kind of want to do some of these changes or apply a lot of what this plan tells us to do. With that being said, I feel a little scrambled. I feel like tonight we've heard a lot of comments. I am not a planner. I'm not part of the team. I'm part of this team. And from what I've read so far and what I've seen tonight, I think there's a lot of not miscommunication, but a lot of language that perhaps people are not understanding what this would imply. And not everyone has the ability to kind of learn what, terms mean or what zoning would be or what planning would only imply to do. So I frankly do agree with some of the folks who share that we may need to, like, I don't know, discuss that a little more. But other than that, the plan itself seems to be in route with goals the city has already established before this plan was kind of set in place. Thank you.
Just really quick, I do want to say that all the concerns that the public brought up today are very valid and we are taking them into account. We heard community outreach, which is a big one. I know that this plan has been in works for I think about a year, correct? It's when we started reaching out to community.
To be exact, it's been over 2 years, I believe.
Yeah, the outreach started January of last year.
January 11th. Okay. Thank you. And then safety. I know safety is a big concern. One of the residents did bring up the police and how they would handle something as big as if we move forward with this plan and what has been drawn up. Traffic is always a big Florence. It's a big street. A lot of people use Florence. It's another concern, as well as the environmental impact. So I just, on the specific plan that we got, we noticed there was no section for environmental impacts. Is that something that we determine separate?
So I think you're correct. So specifically in the specific plan, those environmental impacts that might happen weren't in those, but supplemental to the documents that you got, you also received the mitigated negative declaration. So the California Environmental Quality Act, which measured and looked into and reviewed some of those impacts, and it called out the ones that we thought that could create an impact, not that we thought that we studied that could create an impact, and none of those that could have created an impact couldn't be reduced without us could not be were to be able to be reduced with mitigations. So there was nothing in there that without a mitigation would still create an impact.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez, for that. But a big topic is the safety. So now moving forward, we do have to see how we're gonna go about if this plan moves forward, how we're gonna move forward with safety around that region. I guess that's something that we have to discuss once we get there. Right now there's really no plans set for that. Right.
I think partially correct on in terms of safety, in terms of the infrastructure that we have proposed. It was with the thought of safety. I think you're also referring to life and safety, so police and
Yeah.
fire. So we did ask our police to review that, so they're part of the team that does review these plans and thought that they did have the capacity to do that. But as projects come in, and on just kind of to also touch on one of the points that one of the commenters made is on these projects are not going to be by right. So it's one of the changes that were made from the public review draft to the planning commission draft. So these projects will come before the planning commission, and with that, comments and conditions from our life and safety team members.
Thank you.
I got a question. If the plan allows up to 381 units as proposed, what stops this area from becoming denser and more intense than residents were led to believe, especially once the state density bonus is added on top of that?
So currently, that area doesn't allow for any residential, so the 381 alone would make it more dense by more than 100% of what's allowed right now. And on top of that, developers can, and it's not a choice that the commission has or the city has, is to choose to allow them density bonus. The state law allows them density bonus if they provide affordability requirements. So it can go up more than the 381.
Okay, so I'm under the impression that all the public improvement, if any, all the transit improvements, if any, and anything that backfires is out of the city's control.
The public improvements on their conceptuals. Just speaking about the public improvement, they're conceptuals. So if things were to happen or the city were to decide to do improvements on there, which the city is working on doing improvements on in terms of that type of infrastructure, we would be doing feasibility studies to find what the best design is, and those would be approved by our city council before we implement those projects. Some may have already been approved by our city council as well. Currently, we're working on a Safe Streets for All plan, which is one of those feasibility studies to designate what's best for where. But we do have a choice as to in terms of what those improvements are. And then the planning commission again has a choice in terms of what projects come in and you approving those projects. There are some stipulations in state housing law which do restrict you a bit, but you still have the choice to approve or deny a project.
What we're seeing tonight is not exactly what we're going to see in actuality.
Yeah, what we've done with the renderings is we've maxed out what the specific plan allows. So the 381 is what you're seeing on the renderings, and then what you can do in terms of the height. Or somebody could propose lower if they wanted to. Someone could propose, I'm sorry, how do I say this? Further away from the street if they wanted to. What we've done is we've built out to what can possibly be built to give you the extreme, for lack of a better term.
Thank you.
So I did want to address the whole issue of eminent domain, because I know that people asked about that. What if a developer, again, in order to develop, somebody has to buy it, right? And so how does that come into play?
Excellent question. So the city of Bell Gardens, nor any city in California, has power of eminent domain for acquisition of commercial development or residential development. Those powers were taken away from us when redevelopment disappeared over 10 years ago. So the city does not have powers of eminent domain to force anybody to sell their property. There's other entities that do. Unless it's for public use, a school, street widening, those are the only times that a city, school, or the Caltrans can implement eminent domain. But as far as for private development, cities do not have those powers anymore. And we would not be able to force somebody to sell their property, nor a developer be able to force you to sell your property, whether you're commercial owner or residential owner. So as far as us, the city, forcing somebody to sell their property, we will not. That's not something that the city will do and can do. They don't have those powers. But if that answers your question, but like I said, there are other entities that could do it, but it's for public use only.
And I need one final clarification on the state density bonus, because you brought up the fact that if we are going to require, we had discussed this earlier, if we're going to require a developer when they come in to say, okay, X number of units or a certain percentage of units must be for low-income housing, accessible housing, then they would have the right, if they agree to that, then they would have the right to build out beyond 381?
Correct. So the state density bonus, it's not a law where it's just, hey, I want more units. What a developer would have to do is there's charts in there and there's thresholds in there. The simplest one I know is if they provide if they provide 20% moderate, then they're allowed 10% of a bonus, right? So if we were to require them, just for simple terms, we were to require them to do 20% moderate, that automatically gives them that right to do more. They don't have to do more either. What the state density building also does is allow them what's called concessions and waivers. So they can deviate from some of these things like height. They could go higher if they wanted and not provide the units, or provide the units and go higher. Yeah. So if we did do some inclusionary housing, yes, automatically we'd be granting them the right to be doing density bonus as well, potentially.
So then the challenge here is, how do we get affordable housing and still keep it small?
Those are the challenges that we're faced with based on state requirements. But the city does have the ability to say the maximum is 380 units, but not every property is going to be developed. I mean, this is only a plan. It allows the property owners, existing or future property owners, to develop a certain maximum number of units per the plan. So yeah, theoretically, you can go over 380 units with those density bonus, but realistically, if each property and property owner decides to develop it, yes, it could be. But the likelihood of that happening, as Commissioner Monroy brought up, it is probably unlikely that somebody is willing to develop each individual property. These are just a tool, the city's tool to be able to develop, to provide property owners, developers, homeowners, if they wish to develop their site. And we have some guidelines for them to, a vision for the city to maximize these areas and make it a plan or a destination area or whatever you want to call it, with different sections of the area plan. So like I said, the likelihood of 380 units could possibly happen, but the likelihood is probably not. It's individual owners will have the right to develop their site as they see fit, or nothing. As we said, we have plans that we have prepared, it's visions, and some visions don't come to fruition. This is just a vision that that we based on the current trends of traffic and mobility, that this could create a way of people could be able to mobilize themselves to a transit center from this specific area, because it's a little bit more dense. People have the ability to park, traffic, but there's a lot of things that have to be put in place before then anything can happen.
And so starting with the zoning amendments and all of that, that's the starting place for exploring what is appropriate for the city's growth.
Correct.
In that sense.
In simple terms, everything starts with a plan. You can't do anything without planning something. This is basically a plan to start an idea that the city or the community was looking for. We did go out, do a lot of outreach. A lot of time was spent on preparing this plan based on the vision of the community and also professionals. But it is only a plan, and it's a plan to move the city forward or create these needs of a mobility that we're trying to strive for. So it is all interconnected, as Commissioner Monroy brought up. It all kind of blends into what a lot of things we're doing for the environment, reduce traffic, but it does, as you can see, in other cities, housing is built in vertically now with a lot of parking adjacent to transit facilities. We chose that this was a specific area would be ideal for both transit with mobility, with a lot of more work to address traffic coming from or these mobility from this area to the transit center, which is going to be 3 miles away from us with the stop. So it's just a plan, it's an idea, and we hopefully people will take the property owners will take advantage of this. And if not, like I said, it's just a plan.
Just to piggyback on that, it's up to the business owner or the property owner if they want to participate in this. And I'm thinking of a prime example on Paramount Boulevard in Downey. There's some townhomes there. I think some dentist shop there. They didn't want to do it, so they never sold. And now they build around him. So technically speaking, if this was to move forward, that would happen. Whoever doesn't want to participate, if whoever does sell their property or whatever happens, they could build around, basically. That happens.
Absolutely. So it does take a willing buyer and a willing seller and a willing developer to implement this program. The city is not going to implement. The only part of this, part of the plan that the city would be involved with is anything on the public right of way, which we would have to also vet it out financially to see if it's even feasible. But that would be kind of our starting point of doing any infrastructure improvements on the streets, sidewalks, and curbs. That's the only thing that we have control of. We don't have no control over anybody's property, nor a private developer. It's whoever's here owns a property, you're in control of your property with regulations that the cities might have. So these are just regulations that would be added provided to these property owners to develop, but we would only have control over the public right-of-ways.
Or if there's a city-owned property. This is Lloyd.
Correct. That is correct. If we own it, and we don't own anything other than the city hall.
Very good.
One last question. So if we decide to move forward with this, when would it be presented to city council? Because I know that gives the public another opportunity to go and speak on it.
That would be on May 11th.
So May 11th, would be another public hearing.
Correct. On May 11th, people should receive a public hearing notice on April 29th. And the May 11th would be when it's presented to city council.
Thank you. If there are no additional questions or comments by the planning commission, I will close public hearing at 7:42 p.m. May I have a motion to approve staff's recommendation as noted in the staff report? Just a motion, if I could have a motion from any commissioner.
So, yes, I would like to make a motion that we, oh, that's not the right one. Sorry. How am I supposed to say? Did you approve the staff report? Sorry about that. Okay, so I would like to make a motion to adopt the resolutions recommending approval of an initial study mitigated negative declaration, specific plan amendment, general plan amendment, zone code amendment, and zone change for the proposed Bell Gardens transit-oriented community-specific plan.
May I have a second?
I actually have a question. Will we be voting on all 5 elements of this item, or will there be voting per sort of like sub item to this?
I believe the motion was for all 5.
If I may interject, this is Lloyd. So if a commissioner would like to instead make a motion regarding particular elements, that could be a secondary motion that would then be voted on before the first motion is voted on. So for example, if you wanted to make a motion to recommend approval on A, B, and C, but deny D, something like that, you may make that motion. That motion will be voted on before the first motion.
Thank you.
Did any commissioner want to make another motion?
Yeah, well, I wanted to make a comment. For me, basically, I just kind of want to delay it one more time simply because there's just a lot to unpack. And then we did hear from people that are here as well. So I would love to give others the opportunity, even though last time we had it was a full house, we didn't discuss it. This time was half full. I don't know what happened to all those people from last time around. No, last time around it was full. And yeah, this time, yeah, exactly. But last time they weren't. So that's why I'm saying just give it another opportunity, right? To let others basically come back, right? And we could discuss this one more time because I think this is major. This is big for the city.
Commissioner, by delay, do you mean continue the item?
Yes, sorry. Continue the item for the next planning meeting and then we could go from there.
Okay, then you may make a motion to continue the public hearing to the next planning commission of May 20th.
Got it. So I would make a motion to continue this action item for the next planning commission meeting, May 20th, correct?
Then can I get a second for that?
I second that motion.
Now with the second, that means we, a roll call vote. Maybe we have a roll call vote, Secretary?
Commissioner Boado?
Yes.
Commissioner Gomez?
No.
Commissioner Monroy?
Yes.
Commissioner Preciado?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Barrera?
Yes.
Motion passes.
This is Lloyd again. So sometimes that's our only role, is to clarify these rules for voting. So that's why when there are alternative motions, the last one is heard first. And because this motion to continue the item passed, then it wipes clean all the others. The others are just not necessary.
Thank you, Lloyd. So now how do we move forward? Yeah. Sorry, go on. So now we did the roll call. So public participation is now open for items listed on the planning commission agenda. Secretary, please announce instructions for public participation.
The members of the public will now have the opportunity to speak on items listed on the planning commission agenda. Please state your name for the record. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to speak may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through Zoom app may request to speak by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or the microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from the members of the public that are physically present in the council chamber. If you haven't done so already, please submit all comment cards now. We did not receive any public comment cards. And no one has their hands raised virtually.
Thank you, Secretary. If there is no objection from the planning commission, I will close public participation for agenda items at 7:48 p.m. We will now move to the consent calendar. May I have a motion to approve item number 7.1 on the consent calendar? I'll go ahead and make the motion. So I'll motion to approve the consent calendar. And then second from Commissioner Gomez. Planning Secretary, will you please conduct the roll call vote?
Commissioner Boado?
Yes.
Commissioner Gomez?
Yes.
Commissioner Monroy?
Yes.
Commissioner Preciado?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Barrera?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Public participation is now open for items not listed on the planning commission agenda. Secretary, please announce the instructions for public participation.
The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items not listed on the planning commission agenda. Please state your name for the record. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to speak may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through the Zoom app may request to speak by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or the microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from the members of the public that are physically present in the council chamber. If you haven't done so already, please submit all comment cards now. We did not receive any public comment cards and no hands are raised virtually.
Thank you, Secretary. If there is no objection by the planning commission, I will close public participation at 7:49 p.m. Moving on to staff comments.
You Vice Chair, no comments for today.
I have no comments, but thank you for great participation from both the public and our commissioners. Thank you very much.
If there are no other staff comments, we will move on to commissioner comments. Now, if any commissioner would like to make a comment.
I can make a comment. So basically, like today, right? After seeing community members here, for me, right, where I brought that up, I want to give others the opportunity to hopefully show up for next meeting. Obviously, this is just a plan to remind you, and I don't want to say outreach wasn't done because it was basically what I saw. I mean, there's more outreach, and I'm just going based on my experience from working clinical trials. We always send outreach and no one responds sometimes, or even myself. I could say, I did get the email from the city, but and so I'll find it later. Like I'll complain, I never got it, and it's there, right? But I just want to give that opportunity for everybody, basically, to hear this out, and then we'll go from there. But thank you for all for coming and participating. And my family's been here since 1970s as well, so I've seen this whole change from the no rezoning, which when during the no rezoning, basically what they were trying to do back in those days is not build more housing. And they passed rezoning and you had a new mayor and obviously now we're overpopulated. So that's a different topic there.
So I want to thank everybody that came out, that took time out of their day to sit here with us until almost 8 o'clock at night to discuss this very important topic. And I'm not necessarily in the habit of explaining my vote. I'm very eager to see what we can do in terms of implementing some of the things that are in this plan in a way that is adequate for our city. So I think that at the point where it gets to the development part of it, at the point where it comes to city council, people will have the ability to come and speak out on specific developments, right? I think that yes, it is important for people to understand what this plan actually is. And maybe I should have voted along with everybody else. I just, I want to jump the gun. I want to get this going. Let's see what we can do. Let's make things better for our city. Let's get a little bit more housing in here. Let's get better transit infrastructure. But I mean, I think that in delaying this to the next meeting, I think that we also need to really do a heavy push in terms of maybe getting some bullet points together to explain to the public in very easy terms, what this actually is. So if we're gonna delay it and just say, hey, come to the planning commission meeting, next month, but we don't do the legwork to actually give people some bullet points that they can look at, that they can think about before coming to the meeting, because there were a lot of concerns that were expressed here that aren't necessarily either addressed or impacted by what's in here, right? So I want to make sure that people are understanding what this is as well. So if we're going to delay, let's just make a heavy push between now and the next meeting to make sure that people have at least some basic points, because this is a whole lot to read for the public. And I don't think it's fair to expect the public to even be able to digest all of this, right? I mean, it's hard enough for some of us sometimes, right? So with that, though, thank you, everyone that did come out to express your concerns. I appreciate your time and I appreciate staff's time and the work that they put into this.
I wanted to piggyback on what Commissioner Gomez just mentioned. I just have a brief suggestion to the City of Bell Gardens, as the public at least. I encourage you guys, if there's anything that you're not understanding in the plan, or you're not sure that's how you're interpreting it, to come into the offices and have those of us who work for you explain that, instead of kind of misinforming one another, misinforming your neighbor, and perhaps get upset over something that may be beneficial, or vice versa, perhaps just kind of sit back down and not worry about things. And then, when projects come in to the city, become upset about them when that's too late. So for either reason, I really do encourage each and every one of you to do your due diligence of kind of advocating for yourself and saying, hey, what does this mean? Can you explain this to me? Similar to what Commissioner Gomez just mentioned. We're here to work for you guys. Not all of us also understand some of these, terminology or whatever. But we want to ensure that we're all on the same page. We're understanding what plans like these consist of and what they could possibly look like, like in reality when the time comes. So please do share proper information, not misinformation. We see a lot of that already. And if you do have any questions or not sure you're even understanding it for whatever reason, come in and ask. I know I will. I know I do. And don't hesitate to. And that also comes with any suggestions that you may have for what community engagement can look like in the future for other plans or other changes. Maybe, hey, a booth and a fair isn't enough to elicit people coming in. Maybe do this instead. Any kind of idea is welcome, I'd say. So please do that. Please come in. Thank you.
I just want to start out by saying thank you to staff and to everybody who contributed to this meeting. Thank you for the public for coming out. Our job as a planning commission is to listen to all the voices and to vote accordingly to what we believe is going to help our community in the long run. And I'm glad that we are continuing this conversation to the next meeting on May 20th. So please just stay alert for any notices of any public hearings. Our social media is pretty on top of any upcoming meetings as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing everyone here on May 20th. So thank you, everybody. If there's no objection by the members, I will now adjourn regular planning commission meeting